Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so thrilled to introduce my guest today, Georget. Genevieve, or as I call her, Jen, is a full-time storyteller whose work as a writer and photographer has been seen on Oprah.com, The Good Mother Project, Love in the Rockies, Wedding Bells Magazine, Simplify Magazine, and among her online community of 35,000 people. Jen's first book, Her Own Wild Winds, was published in September 2016, and her second book, Solace, was released in the fall of 2019, winning the 2020 Book of the Year Award for Faces magazine. She is also an executive editor at Roundtable Companies, helping other people, including yours truly, and businesses to bring their own stories to life. Welcome my favorite writing coach, Georget, to Work from the Inside Out, and she is joining us from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Welcome, Jen.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. What a beautiful welcome. It's so nice to be here with you.
Well, it's nice to have you here, and we are here to talk about you. You've spent the past year focusing on me, and you've graciously allowed me now to focus on you. And I thought it'd be great to have you on the podcast. And as you know, we love to tell the stories of people's lives and their careers. And we love to start at the beginning, wherever that is for you and how that might have been formative or shaped the journey that you've been on in your life and your career. So take us back to some of the earlier years for you and tell us how that may have informed where you are today.
I grew up in London, Ontario with my mother. My mother was a single mother raising an only child. So she worked hard, probably harder than any person I've ever known. Every day going to her job so she could provide for the two of us. And what's interesting about that is that my mother was always very, very big on sharing with me that I could do anything. I supported all of that, regardless of how lofty those dreams were. I loved space. I loved books. I would spend hours with a telescope that I'd had and reading books about light years and planets and all of that. And I really loved the Olympic Games as well. We would record them when they were on, and I would watch it over and over throughout the rest of the year. So I wasn't one of those kids that grew up knowing exactly what they wanted to be. And they quote unquote grew up, but I definitely had certain passions and certain joys that I gravitated towards. Having said that, I also watched my mother struggle a lot through work. She kind of went from job to job where she needed to, but I always sort of had the impression that work was like a means to an end. That it's what you did to make time and room for the things you enjoy doing later. So by the time I left high school and went to university, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. A lot of my friends were like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do on the weekend. How can you ask me what I'm going to do for my whole life? It just seems so strange to me that I was supposed to have that figured out. At that time. So I just I came to the University of Ottawa, which was like coming back home for me in a lot of ways because my dad still lived here. So I traveled back and forth quite often. And I went to the University of Ottawa and got a communications degree. I don't really know why. I really enjoyed being able to choose courses. So I just gravitated towards things that were of interest to me: psychology, criminology, group dynamics, religious studies, like all these really fun and interesting things. And over time, they added up to a communications degree. So great. I went with that and ended up, oddly enough, 4 months after graduating in politics, completely by accident. It's the most random story ever.
Wow.
For getting into politics. But the week of 9/11, actually, the entire world sort of fell apart. And here I was being thrown into the snake pit of political life, having never even taken a political science class in my life.
And how did that happen by accident? I'm curious.
I was working at an ice cream store that summer. I had just had my heart broken that June. I had just graduated from school. Life as I knew it felt like it was falling apart. And so it seemed perfectly reasonable to spend 4 months surrounded by chocolate and ice cream. So I was working at this cute little shop in the market, and this girl walked up to order ice cream. She looked at me and she's like, I feel like I know you from somewhere. And we kind of had that awkward stare back and forth at each other. And she's like, I think we went to high school together. And turns out she was graduating the year that I started school. So there was like 4 years between us at least. And we started talking a little bit, and she was like, what are your plans now for after school? And I kind of laughed and really wasn't sure what my plans were going to be. And she was leaving one of the Member of Parliament's offices on Parliament Hill at the time. She says, you have a communications degree. I would love to be able to offer your resume to my boss before I leave, because we're looking for somebody new. And I expressed to her that I really didn't know anything about politics nor had an interest in it. But she said something very interesting to me in the moment. She's like, we can teach you politics, but I can't teach you how to communicate with people. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I thought about it back and forth for a little bit and just decided, well, I have really nothing to lose out of sending her my resume. So I did. And she forwarded it on to the Member of Parliament. What was super helpful was that he was actually the Member of Parliament for the riding that our high school was in back in London. So that also provided a certain edge, if you will, to trying to get in. So I went through a solid 3 months of interviews and background checks and all these pretty intensive processes, I guess. And he finally hired me, and I had no idea what I was doing. And 9/11 happened, and that's the rest of that story, I guess.
So you're working in the ice cream shop. You run into this person you didn't really know, but she somehow recognized you. It's almost like she dropped out of the sky.
Absolutely.
And then saw something in you and felt compelled to put your resume forward. And then you go through 3 months of vetting for this job that you weren't
I am not qualified for,
or not even that interested in. And you thought, well, all right, whatever. And then, so you got hired. So they vetted you, and I'm guessing that she put in a word for you or something, because I'm thinking, you have a communications degree and you have an ice cream shop on your resume, and they're thinking, yeah, we'll hire her. She knows how to scoop ice cream. I mean, you probably had some other things on your resume too, I'm sure. But now, at what juncture did 9/11 happen, and how did that play into, or not, in terms of this job happening and all of that? Was that?
Sure. So they actually ended up hiring me, offering me the job early September.
Oh, so right before 9/11.
Right. So the House was due to reside, I think, the second week of September. So all the Member of Parliaments had left for the summer. They were all returning for the fall session. I was due to start the Monday of that week, which I believe was the 10th. It got postponed because the MP was delayed coming in. And then by that Tuesday, they called and they're like, this is really not a good day. Do not come in today because of everything that had been happening. Meanwhile, the gentleman that owned the ice cream shop that I worked at was stuck in Vancouver because all the flights were grounded.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he had also called and been like, Jen, can you come in and take over here? So it all worked out in a weird way for us to sort of, I called the Hill and sorted out what needed to be done there and just explained, can I stay here until the owner is able to get back into Ottawa and all that stuff. And they were very helpful because they're like, everything was very chaotic and needing dust to settle. So I started the following Monday.
Okay.
But at that point, nothing was settling down remotely.
Yeah.
Everything was getting a little out of control. So there was really no room to train or to shadow anybody.
Yeah.
It was, you get thrown into the lion pit and hope for the best.
So I don't think I've ever heard, I've heard a lot of stories in my 20 years as a career coach. And I've even heard of stories of people having a career pivot right on top of 9/11 on this podcast. But I don't think I've ever heard of a pivot quite like this one, where you retained your ice cream store job instead of going to work at the Parliament because of 9/11.
Yeah.
That's quite a juxtaposition. It's quite interesting. That's all.
I always remember the owner calling me, and there was such a human component to that conversation, because this was his business, and he knew if he didn't have somebody to be running it while he was gone, he would have to close it and have it be closed until he was able to get back. And I remember there being an element of like, this is his livelihood. Well, and I think it's worth mentioning too that at the time, the proximity, so Parliament Hill was right across the street from the U.S. Embassy at the time. And the place where all of these little shops and stores, they're in what's called the Byward Market, also across the street from like one block over from Parliament Hill and from the U.S. Embassy. So being the capital of Canada, it was a highly emotional, intense time, as it was for everybody. But we were being in full lockdown. Our bridges were being closed. We've seen a lot here in terms of political things happening and protocols, but that was like a whole other level of shutting down the world. And it just, people were trapped on one side.
I'm thinking, this was you were thrown into adulting in ways that you couldn't have made this one up.
I guess when I think back to it, I can remember sitting on a park bench just after graduating and just being like completely overwhelmed with life. Like actually almost having like this out of body experience of sorts, where I'm looking at everyone else walking around, going places with purpose and all this stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, I've been in school since I was 5.
Yeah.
Like all of my goals have been set out for me. You know, you finish school, you do this, you graduate to high school, you complete your assignments, you get accepted to university, and then you're just put out there.
Yeah.
And you're told, here, figure it out.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know. And so when I left university and this opportunity came along, I think the reason I took it was because I really had zero expectation of what life after university would look like.
Yeah.
And so I was open to paths that seemed completely unfathomable to me beforehand. So we just sort of took it and see where it went. And it ended up 3.5 years in politics. And
so where did it go? What did you do there? And what did
so
that entail?
I worked in politics for 3.5 years altogether. I was special assistant to the member of parliament. We went through election at the time. He became parliamentary secretary to the prime minister. It was kind of a blur when I look back on it now. It was a lot of really intense hours. I understand why it's really young people that work there, because they have the stamina and the endurance to do it that much at the time. And I ended up leaving, as I said, 3.5 years later, because I was getting quite ill, actually. I was not well, and my doctors were very sure that it was stress related. So I ended up getting a position in communications for the National Gallery of Canada, which is, a couple blocks down from Parliament Hill, one of the most beautiful buildings in the country. I was in marketing and advertising there. It was wonderful. Some of the most magnificent humans you'll ever meet were there. I got to be in creative spaces and work with the fine arts and the photography museum that we had there as well. And it was a really fantastic place to kind of heal and reevaluate and figure out, I don't want to use the term mistakes per se, but sort of figure out where I lost myself a little bit in my last career choice. So I stayed there for 6 years.
Well, how did you just land at the National Gallery? Like, it sounds like, well, I got this job in Parliament, and then we were working with the Prime Minister, and now I'm at the National Gallery. It's like, wow, she really just landed in some great places.
Yes. So I did land in a great place, but I will preempt it by saying it was a decision made out of desperation at the time. And that's probably the greatest lesson that I took away from that. I was so ill and so unhappy, and I was just applying for anything I could find. I don't want to make it sound like I just settled for the job, because that's not what it was. Right. They were incredible people and the work was wonderful. It worked out really well, but it wasn't ideal. It was much more stressful than it needed to be. And that is the lesson I had taken away from moving over into the fine arts. I was not in a great headspace to know what I wanted to do next or what my next move would be. I needed to get out. Thankfully, it all worked out really well and I landed in a great place, but it could have been a lot less stressful than it was.
Yeah, I hear you.
Had I taken notice of some of those signs early on.
Yeah.
And acted upon those signs early on.
Yeah.
Instead of being backed in a corner.
Yeah.
But I applied to everything that would get me out of there. And it happened to work out timing wise really well. And I had the skill set for it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a great match at the time.
And we all, hindsight's always 20/20. I mean, how many of us have stayed in a job way beyond, the expiration date, so to speak, right? And,
the learning curve is always fun, right? Yeah. The learning curve is like dating somebody for the first time. Everything's really new and exciting, but can you go in it for the long haul when things settle and you find your groove? Is that where you connect? Is that part sustainable?
Yeah, there's other factors that compel us to stick it out. I think when we're young, we don't always know ourselves well enough, and then when we get older, we start to take on other responsibilities, and it gets harder in that way to walk away.
Yeah.
But still, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're usually going to get into some kind of trouble.
Yes. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
But fortunately, you did land in a good place, and sounds like you had a really good experience for those 6 years.
I did. And I think what was really wonderful about being there was that it was a great job to be in that gave me the space to hear myself. For lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So when I started to feel unsettled again, I was able to be aware of it and to be with that feeling for a little bit and to figure out what it meant, which led me to make better decisions later versus being in a really chaotic environment where you don't have the time and the space to hear your own voice.
Yeah.
And that benefited me really, really well, because that is what gave us the stepping stone to leave being at the gallery. We had our first son, and I immediately transitioned out of that into starting my own business.
Okay. So by that point, you had already been married and...
Right. Yeah. I got married while I was at the gallery, engaged, married, and was pregnant with our first child in that 6-year period. So I kind of decided to explore this idea of what this photography business could look like, because I knew that that meant I could be away for a little bit on the weekends doing my own thing, but do the majority of the business home while we had young children. So a perfect opportunity presented itself through my work at the gallery, where I was able to take an extended leave of up to 4 years.
Wow.
And I do say that with the understanding that I recognize that this is not an option that is available to everybody.
Definitely not in the US. I'll tell you that.
So through the National Gallery of Canada is a Crown corporation, so it's through government funding. So I had 1 year leave, paid leave through the gallery, and then we were given a 3-year leave, care and nurture leave is what it's called, a one-time leave for each employee, up to 3 years to care for children, parent, a spouse, any sort of responsibility like that. So we proposed to my director to tag that 3-year leave onto my maternity leave.
Yeah.
So they agreed. They held my job for me for that 4 years. It was easier to bring somebody else in for that chunk of time than to bring somebody in for 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
And that gave us that safety net to be able to try something without having the full component of risk at the same time.
It's great.
So it ended up working out really well. We had our second child during that time. And because I was already off, my husband was able to take that time off that I would have normally taken. So we got to spend 9 months together as a family, the 4 of us, when our daughter was just a baby. And ultimately, I didn't go back to the gallery. Everything. It was going really, really well. And I was really enjoying being home with them. And that sort of led the way for full-time photography for a solid, I don't know, another 7 or 8 years after that. Yeah.
So you were doing, it sounds like you were doing the photography mostly on the weekends?
Right. So I specialized in weddings, which took place mostly in weekends. And I did a lot of portrait work, which were ideally during the sunset. So my husband and I, for many chunks of time, were just like high-fiving on the way in and out the door, tagging each other in and out. And so spring and fall, I was out many evenings photographing clients, and then I would be gone for a day on the weekend. Which wasn't awful. I loved being able to get dressed up and eat food while it was still warm and have conversations with other adults, and then come home. And I felt really refreshed to be back home with the kids and stuff at that time. So we did that right up until both of our kids started school full time.
I see.
That was our routine.
Yeah. Wow, what a wonderful way to really to quote unquote have it all. To really be able
I guess so.
Really be with your children the way you want to be and have a professional life.
Yeah, it really did offer a degree of balance in terms of having a creative outlet as well and providing income for our family, even though I was technically away from my full-time job. So I did miss having an office to go to, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's always some compromise one way or another.
Right.
Nothing is ever, when I say
Hmm.
have it all doesn't mean 100%, but I think it sounds like you had it worked out really nicely in a way that it was within your needs and your desires. I just remember when my daughter was really young and I was already working for myself, but I would go, at the end of the school day to go pick her up and um, see some of these other parents who were two parents working full time outside the
Hmm.
home. And some of them, I worked as well. I had her in an after school program even. But some of these parents just looked exhausted
Right.
all the time. It just seemed like I just didn't know when they were, ever really finding any time to just feel a little refreshed. And it, I really just appreciated having the flexibility that I was able to get in the way that I had set things up, and I can appreciate the way you had it set up too. And I realize not everybody can do that, but it I think if you can think creatively, it it really does give you, talking about, mental health, it can make a big difference in terms of how available you are as a parent when you are, home with your children. And I, I mean, that's just the way
I think it really forced us to take a deeper look at what success meant look like for us.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
that was a really eye-opening experience to go through,
Hmm.
because I definitely had moments where, we had a lot of friends who were traveling and going on trips with their families and buying second cars. And I had now left a full-time permanent position with the government that had full pension and extended benefits to be a business owner
Yeah.
that could fluctuate from year to year. It's
Yeah.
not like we knew what our income was going to be consistently. And I did absolutely struggle with that a
Yeah.
lot of the time. But having said that, and my husband was fantastic for reminding me about this. And I also look back on what my mother went through raising me. Like,
Yeah.
she was at all of my sporting events growing up. She did all of these things. And she also worked really late to make up for that stuff a lot of the time.
Hmm.
And we eventually just realized that part of success for us meant time
Yeah.
and having margin in our life. And maybe we weren't bringing in as much money as we were before, but if one of the kids had an ear infection, it was super easy to just be home with them, and we didn't have to call the boss and say we couldn't be there, and we didn't have to rush people out the door in the morning.
Yeah.
There was just an element of margin to our life that
Yeah.
became our definition of success.
Yeah.
And we knew that we were going to veer back and reprioritize again later, because they were only going to be little for a really short period of time.
It's true. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was challenging for a little while to step
Oh, yeah.
outside of like society's definition of what success looked like,
Yeah.
to shape it on your own terms,
Right.
and to
Right.
be okay with that, especially
Right.
when other people reflected back to you
Yeah.
their own feelings about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's got to be what feels right to you. It's not about deciding what everyone else should do. It's just I'm appreciating how you made it work, because it feels like, especially when you describe what happened when you worked in Parliament and how depleting that was, that you found a whole nother level of of health for yourself with this. Not that it was easy, not that it didn't have its challenges, but that you were paying attention at a whole different level at that point in making
Mm.
decisions about how you made certain choices and took care of yourself and your family.
And I think what's interesting about that is that if I were to look back on it, I don't really think I had that very conscious awareness of it at the time.
Hmm.
I don't think I was truly aware that I was going down a road I didn't want to be going down. I just knew that the discomfort of staying where I had now outweighed the discomfort of changing and trying something new. I can definitely look back and be like, this was not good for me and for so many reasons.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't really see that. At the time, I was just hoping to find a job that wasn't making me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And that just felt torturous to be in every single day.
Well, that awareness is often the first step, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever that awareness is, like the first step is awareness. Finding a job that doesn't make me feel sick to my stomach is a step.
Check first.
Check that off the list.
Always be first on the list.
Right. No more stomach aches. So we know from your introduction that you have become might I say a prolific writer and editor as well, and certainly I can testify to say that you are also an amazing writing coach.
Thank you.
So tell us about how things have evolved. I know you're still working as a photographer as well.
So when I was doing photography, I found myself feeling this like incredible disconnect between our clients' beautiful images taken on their wedding days, but the story that led them to that wedding day, right? Like weddings are wonderful, wonderful things, but there's so much you don't get to know about a couple just through looking at their pictures. And I was always really intrigued because everyone had these really amazing, captivating stories. And so I started writing their story with their photos on my blog. And looking back, I realized that this was really the catalyst that taught me how to frame other people's stories. I'd always been really good at writing for myself. I had written my whole life. I had written on my own personal blog for 10 years, but I had never challenged myself to write on behalf of other people and to reflect their story back to them. And what was interesting is that, when you're running a business, you spend quite a bit of time in the analytics, the metrics of what's working and what's not. And we were finding that we were having so many repeat visitors to the blog over and over and over again. So you would get, obviously, people that knew the couple. They would come to the blog to see photos and to experience their day. But we were having a lot of repeat visitors coming to anyone's blog post, whether they knew that couple or not. And when we dug into it a little bit deeper, it was because people are so drawn to stories, so drawn to them. And it was probably my favorite part about running a business was the stories. And I didn't really recognize it at the time. I just followed the joy, if you will. And it led me into writing a little bit deeper. So after I addressed that, the other disconnect I found was that I got to spend so much time getting to know these couples, getting to know the intimacy of their story and being with them on one of their biggest days. But that relationship didn't always extend the other way in quite the same capacity because I'm stepping into their story and not the other way around.
Right.
So in order to run a business that was very heart-centered and relational, I wanted to give them that opportunity to feel like they knew me, not just out of the courtesy of a certain degree of comfort, but also because it helped me come into their story with a bit more ease as well. The less you can feel like a stranger, the easier it is to invite people into those moments. So I started posting about myself. Just stories about my life and what it was like as a mother and what it was like getting married and all these things that I honestly thought were super boring, that they were not interesting at all. But something amazing happened in the middle of that. There was just this connection that people were making. It was like someone jumping off of a dock into really cold water, being like, I'll go first. And then everyone else kind of follows. And these posts, these exchanges with people ended up becoming not just about like, okay, I have a new baby, but it became about the struggles of motherhood and the challenges that came with it that people didn't really talk about. And came with the loneliness of being at home or feeling isolated from community, or like all of these really vulnerable things just sort of started evolving out of this process. And it was creating a community in and of itself.
Wow.
Which was really fun and terrifying all at the same time. And that ultimately led to one specific thing that I wrote.
Yes.
That grew wings and flew away and ended up going viral and changed, like truly it changed my life. There'll forever be before that post and after that post. And it was really just a whole piece about transparency, about the need to the struggle of trying to feel perfect and put together all the time, and realizing that's just really hard, and wanting that permission to present ourselves as our most authentic, sometimes broken and afraid selves to the world, and hoping that you would be accepted just as you are. And oh my word, apparently a lot of other people feel that way. And it just took on a complete life of its own and snowballed all over the place and landed on pages of Cosmopolitan and the Huffington Post and all these massive publications, and in turn created our community as it is today online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a scary week. I mean, it's exciting, but nobody talks about how terrifying having that kind of visibility is, especially if you weren't planning on it and it wasn't part of anything you're expecting, and trying to manage that flood of people. And especially the internet isn't always a very friendly place.
Right. So tell our listeners just how many people, or about how many.
Every year that post starts circulating around again. So it was in the millions when it first went. I don't know exactly the metrics of how they calculate those things, but it was, to put it in a nutshell, I woke up one morning to 750 Facebook messages. Literally overnight.
What would a normal blog before that?
Let's put the context of it. I went to bed that night with about 500 Facebook friends, many of them clients, some family. 3 days later, we had 35,000 followers, 5,000 friends. And it never stopped. It just kept going and going. And the only reason that it kind of capped out was because Facebook gives you a cap, and I actually got locked out. I got put in Facebook jail, the nerve, for like 10 days because we broke the internet. They put me in jail for a little while. So it was a lot. And even now, if you Google it, there's like a banner and my face on MTV, and there's like all these.
Oh my God.
It's so crazy. So crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And it was back, when you could look up trending stories along the side of your Facebook feed, which they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
So there was so many different components that had to align to make that happen. But sure enough.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of people who were like, oh, you became an overnight writer. Yeah.
Not really.
Not really. I've been writing for 10 years before that, with 6 people following my work.
Right.
I kept creating content, and eventually parts of the world caught up with it, I guess. So,
and it was that post that Oprah.com got in touch with you.
That's right. Yes. Right? Yeah. So I want to say, a year later, maybe. I can't quite remember. About a year later, the executive producer from Oprah contacted me through Facebook to see if I would consider writing for Oprah.com for an article. So I got to do that, which was incredibly fun and such exciting experience, but that's also how I connected with everyone at RTC as
Oh,
well. So I became Facebook friends with them through that post. And
ah,
we just kind of, cheered each other on from a distance.
uh-huh.
And 3 years later, they reached out and asked if I would be interested in coming to work with them part-time and see if that was an avenue of writing that would be of interest to me and see if it would potentially work with them. And then here I am with you, making your book come to life.
Well, tell us a little bit about your books and your work with roundtable companies and how that
Sure.
what your business looks like today. A little bit about just sort of what shape that has taken.
Right. Oh, well, so my first book, Her Own Wild Winds, was sort of a byproduct of that viral post. I had
Mm,
always wanted to write a book. I
hmm.
didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know what my book would be about. But when I went viral and this community came to be, many of them were asking if there was a place where we could put all of these little pieces that I had written and collect it together
Hmm.
to create a book. And I thought, much like politics, I was like, why not? Let's go see how that works out. So I took about 9 months off from photography, knowing that that was a risk because once you stop producing new work,
Yeah.
fall down on the Google list, and it becomes really difficult to keep sort of a brand awareness if you're not consistently producing new work.
Hmm.
But it was a risk I wanted to take. I knew I really wanted to write a book, and it was important to me to tackle that while I could. My kids had just started school, so I had sort of a window of time.
Yeah.
So we self-published that book September 2016. We actually published it on the anniversary of when my post went viral as a way to honor the community that had supported me in becoming a writer. So that is a collection of work that I had written over, 5 or 6 years, I guess,
Oh, okay.
and brought together. It did really well for a self-published book, I think anyways. I don't know. It felt really, it felt really good to me. And from there, I decided to write another book, but I wanted to include my photography. I wanted to honor sort of the change I had gone through as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Going viral and having a book go out was actually really, really difficult for me. And it's not something a lot of people understand, even people
Yeah.
close to me understand. But
Yeah.
I didn't ask to be a public profile in that way.
Yeah.
And that took some adjusting to. It was a fine balance between wanting to serve and meet people where they were, but
Yeah.
recognizing that I was getting a degree of credit for that everyone else wasn't. And that was a really big challenge for me in terms of an identity and how do I fit into this and how do I remain true to myself with all these other voices suddenly in my space.
Right.
So I wanted the second book to honor that growth and sort of meet me where I was instead of everyone else.
I love that.
So that's what we did. I ended up working with roundtable companies to release that. And we published that in September of 2019.
Mm.
And it's a beautiful book. I really love it. And it's had this sort of like little quiet whisper to it since it's gone out. It has a different feel to it, but it's been very blessed. It's won a couple of awards for design and for Book of the Year. And it's my little labor of love to sort of recognize the two professions that helped me become an artist. And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. And so, and we'll have links to all of these things in the show notes. Um, I, so what is it? What does the sort of balance of things look like for you these days? Your work with the roundtable companies is part-time, and then you also are doing your photography and your own writing, and just trying to get a feel for where where your business and work life are at today.
Yeah, so great question. When my kids started school, that became another sort of milestone of changing priorities.
Yeah.
And I should preempt all of that by saying I don't like change.
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
For a person who has transitioned through so many different career paths, it gives me a lot of anxiety. I
Mm-hmm.
like routine. I like knowing what to expect. But when my kids started school, I suddenly realized I wasn't with them anymore because they were gone all week. And then I was gone in the evenings and on the weekends. And it just made me so sad. I wanted to be with them in the times that they were home, but that just wasn't going to be conducive to that kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
So that hit me like a ton of bricks because I had worked so hard to build a business that was sustainable and a business that met our needs and our priorities. And I was outright terrified of changing because now I had experienced life as a business owner, which, as for anyone who hasn't done it before, it's very difficult to go back to a regular organizational structure, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't working for me, but it was working for our family.
Yeah.
Then one day I had this complete meltdown after responding to an email for a bride. And my husband was just like, what on earth happened down there? You just went to go answer an email and now you're in a giant pile of tears. And I finally told him I don't want to do this anymore. And I'd never actually said those words before.
Yeah.
I was like, and I felt, to be completely honest, I felt really spoiled. I was like, I have this incredible job where I get to create art and be with people on their beautiful days and have this flexibility. And now I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I felt terrible and I felt guilty because I had asked my family to take this risk with us.
Yeah.
To do this. So I had a giant meltdown, talked to my husband and discussed, what would you like to do instead then? What would your ideal situation be?
Yeah.
And I said, ideally, I would love to write part-time, get paid for it. I would love to help other people write their stories because I know how transformative and healing it is to put your stories on paper. And I said, and I would love for it to still be from home so that I can be with my kids. And I still want to do photography. I just don't want it to be on weekends all the time.
Right.
And then 3 weeks later, the roundtable company called. And no word of a lie. Their words were, we would need you to do part-time writing and help other people write their stories. And it would be from home on your own schedule. And I kid you not, I was just like, I even to this day, I don't have the words of how perfectly that all fell into place, but I had to let go before that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know in my bones that would not have happened had I not actually spoken my own truth about the situation I was in at the time.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up with them. And it is taken a little while to find that balance because my own writing is what actually gives me the energy and creativity to help other people. As strange as that sounds, I breathe one of them in and breathe the other one out. So
it doesn't sound strange at all. Although I will say I always have felt you always had energy for me. So I never had to worry about that.
I guess it's my own writing pours into my bucket.
Yeah.
So that I can use that for other people. So my work right now is so fulfilling and so wonderful. And all of it is about meeting incredible humans such as yourself and helping to not just put the story on paper, but find what the actual story is.
Yes.
Which is so much more than just writing.
Oh, it is. It's
such a transformative experience to look at your life, see yourself as the hero in that story, and just frame it in a way that is truly honoring to all the lives that we've lived. And it's really like the best work ever. It's from home. I get to be with my kids. I get to still do photography, portrait work on the side for clients that I really love.
Yeah.
Like if there was ever a moment where I could truly say, I feel like I have it all in that regard, it's now.
I'm curious to know if you were to give somebody, let's say, one key piece of advice around making transitions, what might be one key piece of advice you would give someone else who was considering their, what's next for them?
I think the key piece of advice, and the one common denominator that I found from each of my career changes, comes at a very energetic level. I could feel physically in my body, my energy would change depending on where I was and what I was doing and who I was with. And a great example of this is when I was working at the gallery, I want to stipulate by saying I wasn't unhappy there.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between feeling fulfilled and not being unhappy.
Yeah.
And I can't quite articulate the difference entirely, but it's a next level thing. You're leveling up a little bit, right? So there was a bookstore across the street from the gallery where I worked at, and it was like mahogany shelves and a ladder that would slide across and a beautiful fireplace and a bunch of cats that would wander around. And I would walk into that space and energetically, I just felt different. I felt inspired. I felt joyful. I felt creative. I felt motivated, energized. And then I would go back to work and I didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't feel unhappy, as I said.
Right.
But I didn't feel this drive to make stuff or to read stuff or to learn stuff. That energetic feeling is what has moved me, even in moments when I couldn't quite articulate what I needed or wanted. I followed the energy. And at some point in time when I was in that bookstore, a switch flipped where I would think back to my mom working and realizing how hard she worked for me and for her, for us. And at some point in time, I asked myself the question, why does work only have to be a means to an end?
Right.
Why can't it also be the joy and the purpose and the fulfillment? And so I started following that energy in all of the things. So when I felt really energetic and alive around photographs, then I was like, what would that look like for that to be my work? And when I started writing the stories for my clients and felt really energized around that, what would that look like to be my work? And on and on. And it became like this little treasure trail towards more and more things that bring you the right kind of energy.
Right.
And I don't always know where that's going to go. And it's led in a lot of directions that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But eventually, your life becomes filled with more of that beautiful energy. Yeah. If you keep following it.
I couldn't agree more.
It led me to you.
It led me to you.
Yay.
Well, on that wonderful note, because that really does capture it all, doesn't it? I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for generously sharing your story. We will have all kinds of links to your website, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, everything. People will be able to find you and learn more about you and your work in the show notes. And I want to also tell people that we have a copy available of Jen's first book, her own Wild Winds, and it's an exclusive copy of her book, because my understanding is there are not a lot of copies of that book available at this point. So we have a copy. So
we have a copy of one of each of them, don't we?
No, I have just one copy of Her Own Wild Winds available. We are going to do a giveaway.
Yay!
So when this episode airs, we will put something in the email that goes out. And if you're listening to this and you want to send me a message, I will do a drawing, a raffle, and whoever wins the raffle, it'll be drawn a week after the date of the release of this episode. So that will be sometime, I think, in late spring, early summer. So somebody's going to be a lucky winner of this beautiful book. Again, Jen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Jen Georget. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her personal and professional journey. What is your key takeaway from our interview? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them on the blog page of my website at tammygulerloeb.com. Just look for episode 134. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Do you feel a little stuck? Get specialized group and individualized support, insights, and accountability from a brilliant mix of professional women in a safe, non-judgmental creative space. Join one of my small mastermind coaching groups, starting on a rolling basis. You can learn more at https://bit.ly/navigating career change. If you were inspired by this episode with Jen, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at tammygulerloeb.com/podcast. Just click on the Apple Podcast button and follow the instructions provided there. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.